Hello and welcome to Translators and Facilities of Language Part 3. Today we're going to be looking at IDEs, Integrated Development Environments. I've got a little bit of a cold at the moment, so hopefully my voice isn't too croaky for you. So this is what we should be learning by the end of today's lesson. So let's start from the beginning of this topic. Programming tools. So in order to create source code, you need software to write it on. So this doesn't matter if you're working on C#, C++, Java, any sort of programming language, you need somewhere to write your code on. You can, in fact, just use any text editor. Something like Notepad would be fine. But many professional programmers, or even students, like to use what we call an IDE, an Integrated Development Environment. It's a piece of software that contains lots of features that make developing programs a little bit easier. So there we go. Comprehensive set of tools to develop programs. So here is a screenshot of Eclipse, I believe. And you can see here it's more complicated than a basic text editor. We've got lots of different features and options and buttons and windows, all designed to try and make developing a software project, a large software project, a little bit easier. So here are some of the common features you might find on a programming editor. You'll have some kind of project explorer, so you can see all the files and folders and projects. A code editor, so you can actually write the code. You can have some kind of output window, maybe with debugging facilities here to try and find and spot errors. You've got all kinds of buttons and controls here. Maybe you can run part of the program, stop it, see what's happening, run the next part of the program, see what's happening. All kinds of different features that you could have in an IDE. And I'm going to go through and just explain some of these key points to you. So common features that you might find in an integrated development environment. An editor, often optimized for one or more particular languages. Error diagnostics, such as tools for debugging, finding and getting rid of errors. Step-by-step progression through a program. A build feature that compiles and links other needed parts of the program together. Version control. Runtime environment. A translator such as a compiler, and possibly an interpreter. So an editor is the software that is used to write source code. A code editor is different from a word processor in that it's not worried about formatting it with bold, italics, tables, or images, because that's just going to interfere with the source code. It's going to contaminate it. An editor for software development is all about writing code that can be translated easily into machine code. However, lots of editors can make your code more readable without having to change what is saved. Things like auto-indenting your loops or your if-else-if statements to make it more easily readable. Identify your variables and the keywords and put them all in different colors. Some will offer code completion. So when you start typing something in, they'll say, aha, maybe you mean this variable or this function or this keyword or this key instruction. And that way you can select it from a menu very quickly and easily without having to type in everything every time you write it. A good IDE will find your syntax errors for you. Just like when you use Microsoft Word and you make a spelling error, a grammar error, it'll highlight it for you. If you make a common syntax error, your IDE should spot it. It might even autocorrect common errors for you. However, it's not going to be very good at spotting logic errors. You might have to work a bit harder to find those yourself. But it will offer you tools to help you find those logic errors. And this is where the Debugger comes in. This is a tool for debugging code to help find errors, especially those difficult to find logical errors. Features of a good debugger include being able to step through your code line by line while seeing all the variable values as you do so. This is known as stepping. So if you're using a very simple editor for writing your code and you've got an error, you might add lots of print statements to it so you can find out what's happening to your variables at different points in the program. But if you've got a good IDE with debugging facilities, then you can get it set up so that it'll stop the program at regular intervals, and that you can then check what all the variables are, what all the values are, and try and spot out what's happening in your program and what's gone wrong. A good IDE might also offer version control. Version control is a system that records changes to a file or a set of files over time so that you can recall specific versions later. So you might only have one file, but it'll have multiple versions. So you can do version 1, make some changes, have version 2, make some changes, version 3. Don't like this version, not working quite the way I want it. So you can go back to version 2 or even version 1 later. Also offer a runtime environment. This contains all the necessary facilities to run or test your program within the IDE. So runtime environment's all about running the program. It's not about changing it or editing. That's other things, the IDE does that for you. But a runtime environment is all about making sure you got everything you need to run that program. So in many IDEs, you're going to have some sort of output console or output window, just so you can see an example of what the program would look like when you run it for real, what your user might see. So something very simple, we've got Python idle, we've got a very simple output window here. We've got another one, I think that's in Eclipse. And again, when you run it, it just shows you what the output is. And of course, your IDE should offer some sort of facilities for translating. So you might have a built-in compiler or an interpreter, depending on the exact language that you're working in. So for example, an IDE will be able to compile your code to create that final executable code for you. The translator will also be used within the runtime environment to execute the source code. Okay, so this is a kind of summary of everything in these lessons. You can pause this, take some notes here, but this goes through translators, it goes through compilers, assembler, all the rest of it, and today's lesson on IDEs. Have a look through it, make sure you understand. Good luck with your studies in the future, and I'll see you soon for the next video.